I
Why are you talking about
think.
me that way, man? Why are you talking about me that way, huh? You know I need to. Come on, huh?
Alrighty. It looks like we're live now on YouTube as well.
Awesome, awesome.
Alrighty. So anyway, yeah, I mean, there's different, credit score ranges. Obviously, anything under 600 is considered low. Anything above 700 is considered okay. Um, I don't know if anybody has a perfect credit score, to be honest with you. I mean, either you have credit or no credit, or bad credit and mediocre credit.
Well, isn't back credit? Hey,
Well,
so
the reality of it is there's always somebody out there to give anybody credit for a price, and
right,
that price is the
right,
interest rate. So,
right. The interest is where it really depends. Some people get 0%. Other people get 29%.
very far few people get 0%, by the way. I think it's a gimmick to get people in there. There's far.
I've gotten it once in my life.
Uh huh.
Once. All right.
Yeah.
Nancy traded in her, and the guy came back and says, "What have you been doing with your credit?" And I'm like, "Why? You have 0%." All right, woohoo!
Wow. You're lucky.
Yeah, but
Because they usually don't like to give away
okay.
that.
So,
They're
but
not
that's
in
the
the
way it is.
business of giving 0% interest.
That was
No bank
about
like
three,
zero
4 years
percent.
ago.
Yeah, no bank like 0% interest. That's where they make their money.
Right? They don't make any money.
You know.
So,
But anyway, we're going to talk about credit, the credit bureaus. A lot of people don't know who they are. We're going to talk about the FICO score and what makes up the FICO score. There's a lot of interesting things about it. There's myths about what makes the FICO score, what it is. And of course, we're going to look at several services that offer identity theft, and we'll look at the different plans as well. So we're going to go ahead and switch to our theater. The problem is that I
hey,
had
do
to
we have popcorn?
no popcorn, and not only that, I got rid of the seats and the screen along the way too.
What? What
Well, the
happened?
problem is with the slides. If I put them in the theater screen, they're too small for people to read, and I know they were
Uh,
complaining about that during
all
the
right.
last solar energy episode that they couldn't see what the slides were. So for tonight, we're gonna we got rid of the seats, we got rid of the curtains, but we're still in there. So
Awesome.
all right, so we'll go ahead and switch over to the theater or the stripped down theater.
Ramiro Villarreal, question
Well,
mark.
there he is. There's Ramiro, probably somewhere in Ohio or Pennsylvania. Alrighty, so for most people, they don't realize that there's only three credit bureaus in the entire nation. And these credit bureaus basically collect information about consumers, primarily their pay history with regards to accounts they open. And there's only three in the country. There's TransUnion, there's Experian, and there's Equifax. And these agencies are pretty powerful. They can actually make you or break you. They're the ones whose information decides whether you get that brand new car, whether you get that brand new house, whether you are able to rent an apartment, by the way,
Get a
whether you
job.
get a job in some cases, not all cases, some cases, thank God. And of course, also with regards to insurance, they run credit checks when you buy insurance, and you pay according to your credit report and what's on your credit report. So some people may pay for lower insurance versus others for high insurance. So that's who they are, and basically these are the folks that have everything about you from the very moment that you open up some kind of credit card or some kind of loan or buy a car. That history is held by these people for up to 7 years. So what's
7 years is a pretty long time.
7 years is a pretty long time. It is. But that is what the law states, that they must hold this information for at least 7 years. But in addition to that, in addition to keeping your credit history, they also calculate what they call the FICO score. And the FICO score is what gives a potential creditor an idea whether you're a good consumer or a bad consumer. But there's a lot of myths associated with the FICO score. A lot of people believe that the FICO score is just an indication of what you pay, but it's only a percentage of what you pay. And so on this next slide is a chart of what actually makes the FICO score. As you
Now,
can see,
are there different FICO scores out there?
no. The FICO score is the FICO score. There are other things like Vantage score.
The Vantage score is a different
I'm not
one.
really familiar with the Vantage score, but for many years and up to this point, the FICO score has been the standard.
Standard.
So basically, what you see here is that 35% of the FICO score, your score is based on your payment history. How often you pay early, on time, or late. But as you
So if I have a
notice,
late payment at 35%, could potentially hurt my
it could.
FICO score.
But the reality is that 40, what is that? 40, 55, 65% of that score has nothing to do whether you pay early, late, or on time. That is the myth. The myth always was that the entire score was based on whether you paid early, on time, or late. But that's not the case. 30% of that score is based on your debt to income ratio. So if you owe more than you make, that affects your FICO score.
Why are you talking about me again? Man.
Well,
Not about me, all right?
we all, for the most part, owe more than we make, 10% is new credit. So if you go out and open up a credit card somewhere, like at Cons or, any of those places, that factors in at 10%. 15% of the score has to do with the length of credit history. And let me tell you a little bit about another myth. There are folks out there that believe that after they pay off a credit card, that the smart thing to do is to take that credit card, close the account, and cut it in half. That is the wrong thing to do, because you're
Right.
actually damaging your credit by closing out the account. And then the last one is just credit mix. How much do you have in auto loans versus mortgages? If you're somebody that has 3 or 4 houses, 3 or 4 cars, your credit cards, that credit mix affects your FICO score. But 60% of your FICO score is and has nothing to do with whether you pay early, you pay on time, or you pay late. Now, I'm not saying that as an excuse for not paying.
Right, so you're saying I can pay my bills late and I won't be affected. No, that's
Well,
not what you're saying.
let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah,
Let's
what
talk a
I'm
little bit about
getting
that.
is
I can tell you
it
right
will
now
affect you. No.
that if, let's say, you have a Visa card, and that Visa card is due tomorrow on the 15th, okay, and you, for whatever reason, forget to pay it, and it happens. It's happened to me. In fact, I forgot to pay one earlier this week, okay, but I paid it the next day. Will your credit score or credit report be affected by that late payment? The answer is no. If you pay it within the last day of the month. It will not show as the last payment if you meet the 30th or the 31st of the month. So the only thing that you will pay a penalty is the $29 late charge that you're going to incur. Whether you pay the late charge including the late payment that month or you incur it the next month, the reality is that you're not going to see that as a late pay on your credit report for that month. If you do not pay it and it goes to the next month, okay, then it will show as a late payment.
That's what Mr. Villarreal is saying.
Right. Only if you do not pay it before the 30th or the 31st. If you pay it before the 30th and the 31st, before the data hits the credit bureau, you're okay. It's only after the next reporting period. That's when it will show as a late payment. So, like I said, the thing that you're going to incur is you're probably going to incur a late fee. But that's about it at that point. And that's all I've got to say about that for now. I know there's another topic we discussed about the 7-year period. We can talk about that later as we go through the topic.
Yeah.
Actually, we could probably do it now. I mean, really. There's a lot of questions with regards to bad debt. And with regards to, I've heard a lot of people complain about hospital bills, medical bills. You know, when you go into the hospital, especially in the emergency room, you know, you go in, you're going to be charged by the emergency room. Then, more than likely, the doctors that actually work in the emergency room are not actual hospital employees, but they're actually part of a doctor's group that services the emergency room. So what a lot of times happens is while your hospital is part of your insurance plan, a lot of times the doctors that are working in the ER are not. And that's where people start incurring bills that are not covered by the insurance. In addition, you'll have laboratory fees associated with companies that are in charge of taking the lab work and interpreting the lab work. Any x-rays that are done in the hospital, you're going to get a fee from the hospital for the x-ray or the MRI or the CAT scan, but you're going to get a bill from the radiology organization that actually interprets the x-ray, along with pathology. And I know all this because I worked in a hospital for 5 years, and I work with this kind of stuff, and people used to come in complaining about why they're getting this bill from this person. They never saw this person, especially the doctor that read the x-ray. I mean, you don't ever see them. You don't even see the anesthesiologist at times, you know, if you've got any kind of minor surgery. So a lot of times they don't even bill on time. You may not get the bill until a year, 2, 3 years, sometimes not at all. And the only way people find out about this is when they go buy that car, or they're applying for a loan, or they're going to get that dream home, and all of a sudden this comes up. And the question is, what do you do about it? How can you get rid of it? Well, I'll be very honest with everybody. As somebody who knows this process in and out with the credit bureaus, let's say hypothetically you own a medical bill, and you are on the 6th year of the 7-year period of a bad debt. You are better off not paying that bill.
Yeah, and how can you say that? Wouldn't that be theft of service?
No.
All right?
No. Well, you didn't pay it, right? But here's the problem.
No, but that's an interesting point you bring up, because the way I've been brought up is, hey, you don't pay for something, you're stealing it. So,
Well,
in my opinion, that would be theft of service.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit, okay?
All right.
When you open up an account, regardless of what the account is, that
Mm-hmm.
account's history remains on your credit report for 7 years. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
If that account goes past 120 days, which is the typical bad debt ceiling, where that account is no longer in the credit entity's accounting system, it goes over into collections after 120 days. Once it goes in from internal collections, it then gets sent over to a collection agency. And the collection agency's responsibility is to collect on that debt that no one else was successful to get. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
When that account gets turned over into the collection agency, back in the 90s, the rate of reimbursement to the collection agency was 20%. So if somebody owed a $100 bill and the collection agency was successful in getting that individual to pay the bill, the collection agency gets $20 and the original creditor gets $80.
80.
Okay?
And how would that affect your credit?
Well, once the account goes into collections, it will go into a bad debt status. And the credit bureau has a rating system of 1 through 9. 1 through 4 is basically the account's in good standing. 5 is borderline, and 6 through 9 is the account is in bad standing. 9 being bad debt. Okay? So, let's say you owed a bill for $100. You didn't know. It was some guy that did your colonoscopy, and he didn't do anything but was there just to make sure. The anesthesiologist. Let's say this is the anesthesiologist, and you find out you owe the guy, but you never got a bill. And believe it or not, that is real. People sometimes don't get the bills. Okay, for whatever reason. You're at your 6th year of owing that debt, not knowing that you owe it. You try to go get yourself a car, and this comes up. Well, what do? Do you pay the $100
Pay it
bill?
off.
No.
You pay it off.
No, you don't.
What?
No, because on your credit report, there are 2 very significant dates. One is the date that the account was opened, and the second date is the date of last activity. The 7-year period starts at the date of creation, but can be retriggered at the date of last activity. So let's say this person finds out he owes this account in the 6th year. If he were to go and hand the collection agency a $100 payment, then that payment gets posted. The collection agency gets their $20. The original creditor gets their $80. At the end of the month, when that account is reported to the credit bureau, that is an activity. And that actually triggers the 7-year period. So the 6th year becomes year 1, and now that account is still showing as late bad debt for the next 7 years. So you can't get that off at that point because you made that payment and you caused an activity date to trigger that reset the 7-year period.
So by trying to do the right thing,
your
credits or
gets damaged. Lowered. Exactly. You screw yourself. So the best thing to do, and the thing that I've told people to do, and I get it. When I say this, people think, how could you give that advice? Because in the long run, you're better off leaving it alone and letting the 7-year period expire. Because let me tell you, by the time it gets to the 6th or 7th year, the creditor doesn't care. The creditor can't even apply that cash. When they get their $80, they have no account to apply it to, and it ends up in a suspense account. It ends up in a slush fund because that account already came off of the books. It purged a long time ago. There's probably nobody alive that remembers you. So you're better off not paying it. I hate to say that.
But you're not saying for me to go get in debt,
no,
go 120 days late, and wait 7 years for it to go off.
No. That is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying for somebody to do that deliberately. What I'm saying is that if by some chance you come up with an account that you didn't know about, and you're at the 5th year or the 6th year, you are better off not even responding to the collection agency first and foremost, and not sending them not a single penny, because you will not get that item off your credit report. So it's best to wait. Now, what happens if hypothetically you did have a bad debt and you did pay it? Can you get that item off of your credit report? Okay.
I would say yes.
Yes. And there is a way to do it. It's not going out to the guy at the street corner who charges $700 and tells you...
You mean the credit repair guy down the street?
That credit repair guy down the street is not some magician.
He would give me a great deal.
No. He's not no magician. He's not...
Frankie just posted something.
Yeah, Frankie, I use my credit card for everything and pay it off monthly. I've seen that, my credit score. Yeah, and that's a good thing, you know. You know, if you've got the ability to pay your credit card every month in full, that's great. Not a problem. But let's say hypothetically, you owed something and you paid it. How do you get rid of it? How do you get rid of it? Well, like I told you, the guy at the corner, he says he can clean up your credit and you can get that dream house, you can get that car, you can get whatever. Well, he's ripping you off. He's taken advantage of a loophole in the Fair Credit and Collections Act, which states that when you contact the credit bureau and dispute an account, the credit bureau has 30 days, not 29 days, not 31 days, not the first, but 30 days exactly to prove that that account is either yours or not yours. And if they can't prove it within 30 days, by law, they have to remove that item from the credit report. Period. And that is what these individuals who so-called fix your credit are doing. They're suckering people at paying $700 or $800, and they're writing a shitload of letters to the credit bureaus to try to take advantage of that flaw in the Fair Credit and Reporting Act.
All right, now
there is no magic. There is no magic to this.
Credit repair guy, all right? Hey, maybe I don't have the time to write these letters. Maybe they're fancy letters.
No, maybe they're not fancy letters.
Way. They're
not fancy letters. Remember, all you got to do is say it's not mine and prove it. Now let's talk a little bit about proving it. What does proof mean? Okay, the credit bureau has to prove it. But proving does not mean that they look at the account on their system and say, no, this guy's a deadbeat, it's his. That's not the way it works.
There you go again, talking about me.
The law says that the credit bureau has to prove that it's your account by the following. They have to provide proof. They have to provide the original contract signed with your signature or your identity that says it's yours. Now let's fast forward. What's the problem with that? It's pretty simple. You open up an account. That account goes into bad debt. it ends up in a collection agency. Chances are the first collection agency isn't any more successful than the rest of the people that were collecting the account before. So that account gets sold to another collection agency, and a third collection agency, and a fourth collection agency. Well, by the time typically somebody finds out about it, they're at the third and fourth collection agency, and the dispute occurs. Well, the creditor does not have that account no longer in their system. Chances are it's stuck somewhere in a warehouse with records, or good old microfiche, or on discs, or on tape. Okay, they can't pull the information any longer. So the proof is not going to be in reach within 30 days. I personally know this because I had to go to warehouses to dig up information. Huh?
Dropped off in 30 days, all right?
Yeah.
Then the collections agency hires Steve Rodriguez to do the investigative work, and he goes into that warehouse, does the microfiche reading, right, and finds the original contract of Daniel Salinas that owes X, Y, and Z company. Does it come back to your credit report?
If the collection agency or the creditor agrees, it can come back to your credit report. Yes, it can. But let me explain to you the pain in the ass associated to that, as somebody who did it. These records are somewhere in a warehouse. No air conditioning, lots of rats, roach poop all over the place, you name it. Chances are there's probably water damage on some of the boxes by now. A lot of times it just wasn't worth going to all that effort.
Right, for $100 it wouldn't be worth it.
Second of all, to recreate the account to post the money is a pain in the butt. There is a lot of steps, as you and I talked about earlier today, of what I had to go through to take that money out of the suspense account and put it back into the corresponding account. I had to recreate the account again. And by the way, the account actually got recreated and the 7-day period, the 7-year period started again. So what did I have to do afterwards? I would have to take that account. I would have to wait 30 days after the account. I set up the account back, and it hit the credit bureau. Okay. Then I ran a credit report against the 3 credit bureaus to see if the account was back on their credit report. And once I verified that it was back on their credit report showing as a bad debt, I would then fax and submit documentation to the credit bureau that says account holder so-and-so, address, social security number, date of birth. This is the account when it was opened, total balance on the account, charge-off amount, date of last activity. Change it from a 9 to delete. And off they went via fax. And within a day or two, it was gone, like it never existed on their credit report. Just like that.
Wow.
Just like that. So it's an interesting process. But don't go out and pay somebody to fix your credit. You can do it yourself. The same way that guy is on the corner is taking advantage of the flaw in the law is the same method that any consumer today could use with regards to removing an item off of their credit report. It's a matter of writing a letter, an email to the credit reporting agency and saying, this is not mine. And they have 30 days, not 29, not 31, not the first, 30 days to prove that it's yours with valid proof that it's yours. I know it's not what a lot of people think is the right thing to do, but believe me, if you want it off and you're going to go and pay somebody that supposedly says it's got magic potion, nice magical spells, a little brujeria here and there, you're just wasting your money. Because they have no special software, they have no special connections, there isn't any potion out there, no amount of CBD oil will do anything different than a simple letter or email to the credit reporting agency. And when you start this process, you go out and get yourself the 3 credit reports from the 3 credit bureaus, because you're going to find out that the account may be on all 3 credit bureaus. On 2 of them, the account may exist, and on the other one, it does not. The credit report from each credit bureau can be completely and totally different. And so my recommendation is, when it comes to bad debts, there is a process. Mr. If there is proof, will that action trigger a court date? Let's talk a little bit about that. When can they sue you, and for what amount? Well, it used to be that anything greater than $5,000 was something that they could sue you for, that a collection agency can sue you for. Okay? But let me talk a little bit about collection agencies. Okay? First and foremost, they can sue you. Okay? But the first couple of letters and phone calls you get harassing you are simple barks, no bite. Okay? If the account is for a minute amount, the chances of them taking you to court are slim, because they're not going to waste their time by the time they calculate attorney and court fees. It could turn out to be a lot more than it's worth. And the rule was that anything under $5,000, it was overlooked. I can tell you that on some of the credit cards like Discover and American Express, the collectors are more aggressive. I have seen people getting sued for $1,200. In the state of Texas, they cannot garnish your wages. Not for things you owe. There are only certain conditions they can garner your wages. If you owe income tax, they can garner your wages. If you owe child support, they will garnish your wages. And I believe federal student loans, they may be able to garnish your wages. Those are the 3 things in the state of Texas that they can garnish your wages for. Other than that, the Texas Constitution protects consumers from wages being garnished. So don't put out too many kids. Otherwise, you're going to get your paycheck cut in half. Pay your income tax, your federal income tax. And what was the third one?
And the student loans.
And the student loans. But no, in places like New York, some of those more liberal states, yes, they can garnish your wages. But not in the state of Texas, unless it's those 3 things. But
interesting information so far.
Yeah, interesting information. And I'm talking from the sense of working in collections for 5 years. Of how, there were many times that people came in wanting to buy a house, wanting to buy a car. And, a lot of times medical debt, especially medical debt, is overlooked depending on the creditor. But there are some that are sticklers. And they used to come in. I had one guy even threaten me, said that he had just come out of Huntsville and he wanted this thing off his credit report. And I said, well, the only way it's going to come off your credit report and I can make it go away is if you pay the bill. And I don't mean paying 3/4 of the bill. I mean pay it now. No amount of time
And
in
did he pay?
Huntsville. Of course he did. He wanted his truck. He paid the bill. And I would go a step forward as a way to help the individual. Not only would I get rid of their blemish on their credit report, I would give them a letter on company letterhead that said, Mr. So and so has paid this debt in full, and this item has been submitted for removal from the credit report. They would take that to the finance company, and a lot of times that would be enough for them to get the loan. But yeah, yeah, it was quite interesting. It was one of those jobs that nobody wanted to do, you know, but it was fun. It paid for
And
my
so
school books.
you say there's three different credit reporting agencies.
Yeah.
Which one has more power over, or which one do people use the most?
Well, what I've seen is TransUnion appears to be used the most. Equifax has been around just as long as TransUnion, and Experian is an offshoot of TRW. Back in the '90s, there was Equifax, TRW, and Experian. And TRW is, people know TRW for many things. They're in automotive manufacturing, they're all kinds of stuff. But TRW as a conglomerate owned a credit reporting company, just like a lot of companies do. They're into all kinds of stuff, you know. But for the most part, people use TransUnion. I can't tell you exactly why, but they do. So when you go apply somewhere, chances are you're getting a TransUnion report. So you should start off with TransUnion first, followed by Experian, and then followed lastly by Equifax.
Now, is there a charge to pull these credit reports?
Not for the consumer, okay? Not for the consumer, but one of my jobs was obviously to pull credit reports on people that owed bad debt.
Now,
And
when you pulled that credit report, that was a hard inquiry or a soft inquiry?
it was a hard inquiry. Back in those days, there was no such thing between soft and hard. It, you pulled it, it stayed firm. There was no soft or hard back in those
I
days.
thought you had to have some type of document signed
Nope.
by that individual.
I don't have to nothing signed. I just need your name, your last address, your social security number, and your date of birth. And if I don't have your social security number, I don't need it. I just need your date of birth. And I
And
get
that
it.
hasn't changed.
I don't know if it's changed now, but back in those days, I didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
And they charged me anywhere from 30 to 40, maybe $50 per report. There's a charge. When they pull up your credit, there's a charge. So let's talk a little bit about inquiries, because that's also a factor in your credit report and your credit score. If you go out tomorrow and you go to Old Navy and you want to open up an account, and you open up the account, and let's say you get it, or you don't, they do a credit check. There is no soft credit check for the most part. There are companies that you mentioned earlier that do soft,
Yes.
but I'm not
Yes.
familiar with what that really means. But I can tell you, when it comes to a hard inquiry, if you go and apply for credit at 3 or 4 different places tomorrow, those are going to show up as credit inquiries on your credit report. And that raises two things. One, it's a red flag to a potential creditor that says, hey, I've got some guy who is running around trying to open up credit card accounts. Beware. He could be a scammer. He could be a deadbeat. He could be somebody that's not going to pay the bills. Okay? He's trying to get that 80-inch TV anywhere he can find it. Okay? And he's not going to pay it. Okay? So that's a red flag. Number two, those credit inquiries hurt your credit score because it actually drops your credit score. So it's not good to go out and apply for credit at 3 or 4 different places. I understand that when you go buy a car or any kind of vehicle, typically the dealer will go out and throw your name out to potential companies. A lot of times, I know that in this area, they go, if you go to Chevrolet today, to the dealer down here, they'll try to get you through GM's finance company. I don't know what they're called now, but they'll try to
GM Financial.
GM Financial, okay? Then, if they don't approve it or don't want to give you the credit, then they're going to go to another company. And then, if they don't approve it, they'll go to the third company. Okay? Eventually, somebody's going to give you the credit at a price.
So that's already 3 or 4 different hits.
That's already 3 or 4 different hits. Now, you may be right. In this situation, maybe there's such a thing as a soft inquiry versus a hard inquiry. Now, keep in mind, I have not pulled my credit report in years. So I don't know at this point whether the inquiry activity has changed between hard and soft. But the last time that I checked, the credit report said nothing about hard and soft. It's credit inquiry and it's credit inquiry. You know.
Well, I know on one of the services that I have, all right, has hard inquiries. Then on another section, it has people that have checked your credit.
Yeah.
For soft inquiries.
Yeah.
All right. For
Now,
potential credit cards.
well, yeah. Well, here's the deal. A lot of people don't realize that there's a credit review done every year annually, typically around November, by credit card companies. And what they do is they go out and do an inquiry against your entire credit history. And they determine at that point whether they need to increase your credit limit or decrease your credit limit. And if they find that there's been a change in payment activity within the last year since the last annual credit review, they will adjust your credit limit based on that. That
Yes.
will show up as a credit inquiry on your credit report when the credit card companies do it as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It happened to my household.
Yeah.
All right. And for one of them, it went up. And for the other one, it went down.
Right. Right. Yep.
All right.
So let's talk about ways to protect yourself. You know, there's a lot of identity theft going on out there. A lot of
I
it.
have my 45.
I mean, what?
I to protect myself.
No,
Oh.
these guys aren't going to go to your house and steal your wallet. Okay, they don't need to do that.
All right.
I mean, that's the Wild
Put
West back in Jesse James' day. We've got
my
modern day
45
Jesse
and my
James
9.
out there, usually outside the United States.
All right. So protect yourself from.
And they all apparently
what?
have American first names. They don't have American last names, but they have American first names. But anyway, what mechanisms are out there to give you some insight whether somebody is trying to take your identity? I mean, they could take away your social security number and report income against it. You know, some people could look at it as a bad thing or a good thing. You know, if they make a crap load of money, you know, they may add a few nickels to your Medicare points. So that could work to your advantage. Maybe a few nickels to the Social Security trust fund. But a lot of times that's not why they're doing it. And it doesn't really help you. They're out there to use your name to steal the ability for them to get money from somebody else using your information. And they do it a lot. And if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. But it works. They don't have to work. So there's a couple of companies out there that actually provide what they call protection against identity theft, and we're going to look at some of those companies and what they offer. I'm not advocating any one of these. Each one has its pluses and minuses, but there is a little bit of caution that you should employ when looking at signing up for one of these, because they're not all the same and they do not all provide the protection, and it's just something that you've got to do because everybody says they can help you, but I'm not so sure about whether they can do everything they say, and we'll talk about it as we go through the slides. So we're going to switch over to the virtual. Whoa, did you see that?
Yeah, what happened?
I don't know. There's a flicker, but I think we're still good. I think we're online still. I don't know what the heck happened. Maybe it's the ghosts. So we're going to go ahead and flip to the...
It's the credit reporting companies.
I know. They're angry
down.
at me. They're angry for me sharing their secrets. You know,
I should
write... Actually, I should write a book on this. You know. But anyway, we're going to flip to the virtual theater. Oh, we are in the virtual theater. What am I talking about?
You are. Hey.
Actually, what happens is I'm in the studio screen, so I can see you and me in the previous screen. But we're out of the theater. What am I talking about? All right, so let's go ahead and flip. All right, so one of the very first companies is called LifeLock, and it's actually by Norton. If you recall, Norton started off as an antivirus company. Yeah. But they actually now are into all sorts of things, you know, and one of these things is identity protection. And what they offer is identity and social security number alerts. If somebody were to open up an account, use your social security somewhere, they apparently will send you an alert to let you know, hey, something funny's going on. They also offer a credit monitoring service. So if your credit report changes, they'll send you alerts on that. If there is funny business going on, they'll proceed to put an identity lock, and only for TransUnion at this point.
So it's only one credit bureau.
Correct. Payday loans. If somebody goes out and tries to do a payday loan with your information, they will put a lock to where if somebody tries, the payday loan company will not do it because there'll be a lock on that. And if somebody tries to take over your cell phone, supposedly they can do monitoring. How the heck they can do that, I don't know. But they claim that they can. And those things right there in asterisks are not available in the standard plan. They have 3 plans. Okay? And they've got the standard plan, they've got the advantage plan, they've got the ultimate plus plan. And the standard plan covers up to $25,000 in stolen funds. So if you get a loss of up to $25,000, that's covered under the standard plan. Under the standard plan, you only have one bureau for monitoring credit. It'll probably be TransUnion. Under the Advantage plan, the protection goes up to $100,000, and you also only get monitoring for one credit bureau. And of course, the Ultimate plan, or the Ultimate Plus plan, gives you coverage up to $1 million, credit monitoring across all 3 credit bureaus. And as you can see by the pricing, the greater the features, the more it costs. So you can spend...
The more you pay.
Yeah. You can pay anywhere from $8.99 a month for the lowest plan, all the way to $23.99 a month for the higher plan. Now, I personally have not used these, so I can't tell you how good they are. I don't know if you have, but...
If you go to the next one, I believe you have the next one.
Okay.
Which is the next one?
The next one is Identity Force.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, let's go through them, and then when we hit yours, you can talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Because you say that you're a member of one of these. Okay.
Yes, I am.
So the next one is Identity Force, and lo and behold, they're owned by TransUnion. Surprise, surprise. They offer Smart SSN Tracker. They do bank and credit card activity alerts. And they claim to do dark web monitoring. Now, I don't know how they do that. And I personally, being a tech person, I have not searched the dark web. I have no reason to go to the dark web. I know there's all kinds of things that go on in the dark web, but I can't tell you how they go into the dark web and monitor things, but supposedly they claim they can. Those are standard features across both of their plans. If you subscribe to the higher plan, you get credit monitoring. You get quarterly 3 credit bureau reports, scores and reports.
Did they misspell bureau?
I did. It was me. I know. I had a hard time spelling that word. It's a good thing I don't work for. Good thing I don't work for the FBI. I would have probably been fired the next day. They also do credit score tracker and credit score simulator. And each one covers up to $1 million. And the cheaper plan is $9.99, and the higher plan is $17.99. The next one is Identity Guard. Now, one of the things that they tout about is that their customer care team is U.S. based. I assume that some of these others are offshore somewhere. They claim that if there is any sort of data breach by any creditor, you will be alerted immediately by them. They also claim to do dark web monitoring, and they provide identity theft insurance. They have 3 plans. Each one covers up to $1 million in identity theft. But the first plan, which is the cheaper plan, is $5.39 a month, and that provides a risk management report, a high-risk transaction monitoring, and safe browsing tools. And safe browsing tools kind of catches my attention because I don't know what they provide with that. I mean, could it be a malware software, commercial software out there? I mean, most of those things you can get for free or close to free, you know. So I don't know what you'd get extra there. But if you sign up for the standard identity and credit protection plan, you get bank account monitoring, 1 bureau monthly credit score, and 3 credit bureau monitoring. Now let's talk a little bit about bank account monitoring. In one of the articles that I was reading, the article claimed that none of these services really do bank monitoring, and they don't have the ability to do it because there's a lot of privacy involved in banking. So to allow a third party to access to their systems, I don't think a lot of banks are going to do that. So it's questionable whether bank account monitoring is actually true. But if you sign up for the higher plan, the $15 a month plan, you get everything in the first 2 plans, but you also get social media insights reports. And I'm not sure what the hell that means. I can tell you that when it comes to Facebook, I have an insight report that tells me how many people view this show and some of my other shows. But I don't know what they mean by that, but they claim that's what they do. They also do credit card and debit card monitoring. And apparently they do 401k and investment monitoring. They also do criminal and sex offender monitoring. They do white glove, which I'm not sure what that is. But they also do USPS address change monitoring. So if somebody goes to the post office and fills out a card for you that says, I'm moving from this house to this house, and they're only doing it to see if they can collect your extra checks coming in or extra credit cards coming in. I assume that's what this is for. Home title monitoring. If somebody tries to mess with your home title, you get one bureau monthly credit score report, you get 3 credit bureau monitoring, and you get 3 bureau annual credit reports for this one. Oh. The next one is Complete ID, and that one is owned by Experian. Of course, they have 4 plans, but they're one of the ones that actually offer protection to your children, especially your college-age children. With the first plan at $8 a month, they claim they do dark web surveillance. Once again, I have no idea what they're monitoring in the dark web. I have my doubts. They do a financial account takeover services. If somebody buys an account that you have with somebody else, they monitor that. Now, one thing that's interesting is neighborhood watch monitoring. I'm not sure what that is.
Well, neighborhood watch would be something that the sex offender, wouldn't it?
Maybe. Probably. I
Or
don't
any
know.
pedophiles.
Pedophiles. SSN monitoring, which I'd expect be the standard. Any alternative loan monitoring. Criminal record monitoring. Mail change alerts. 3 credit bureaus. A monthly Vantage score update. 3 annual credit bureaus for free. They can do an Experian credit lock. And they claim that they have 24/7 customer care support, and they have up to $1 million coverage and lost wallet replacement assistance. If you want to get protection for your children, it includes everything the adult plan has, but it also monitors child monitoring and their credit history, and you can do it for up to 5 children. Doesn't include Hash Brown, by the way. He's not included.
Oh, man. Hash brown's not included.
Yep.
That's
So
not
his
right.
pet care car is not going to be monitored. Or PetSmart.
So he can go run up a bill, or his girlfriend can go run up a bill, and nobody will know about it.
If he knocks up the neighbor's dog, you're in trouble.
Hash brown, you heard that, Hash brown?
So he has to keep it covered. Dark web, they also offer plans for 2 adults, husband and wife, or whatever. It covers everything that the adult plan has. But let's see what else. No, they pretty much have everything as the first plan does. It's just that it covers 2 adults. And of course, the 4th plan is 2 adults and a child, and the children, up to 5 children. And it goes from, like I said, the cheapest is $8.99 a month, all the way up to $18.99 a month for the existing plan. The next one is ID Watchdog. They have 2 plans. One is $14.95 a month. The other one's $21.95 a month. The cheaper one offers 1 bureau credit report monitoring. They also monitor for any subprime loan monitoring. If somebody tries to get a subprime loan today, even though it's very difficult these days, it's not 2008, they will alert you. They also claim to do dark web monitoring. Maybe down the road we'll have an episode on with regards to the dark web. I don't know.
We should.
Right? It sounds too interesting. We may find things we don't want to see. Or maybe high-risk transaction monitoring. You get 1 bureau credit report and 1 Vantage score credit score. They do credit score tracking for 1 bureau. And Equifax child credit monitoring. By the way, this one's owned by Equifax. Identity resolution. They'll help you figure out if the person who opened up the account is you or not you. and the identity theft coverage is up to $1 million. The premium plan does everything the first one does, but it also includes 401k and HSA. That's a misspelling, stolen funds reimbursement. So if somebody taps your 401k and does a withdrawal, they'll alert you. If you lose your health savings account card, your debit card, and they go out and buy, 10 blood pressure kits and you didn't do it, they'll reimburse you. They'll reimburse your HSA account for that. The next one is identity fraud. They too have two plans. Each one is $9.95 and $15.95 a month. Identity fraud risk score and monitoring. They do SSS monitoring. They do credit card monitoring. They do data sweep monitoring. Their coverage is up to $1 million. Now, this one's interesting. Keystroke encryption software. I guess they provide you software that you install on your machine that everything you type is encrypted so that if somebody were to hack into your computer, they couldn't read your keystrokes. So if you went to a website and you typed in your password, it would be encrypted and they couldn't snatch it. Because, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned to you, when you log into a website, regardless of what the website is, or you go to a website that has a form that you fill in, how do you think that information gets transmitted to the server?
Zeros and ones.
No. Well, yes, zeros and ones. Right? In the end, it's all zeros and ones. Right. But the information that you key into a form, or the password and username that you key in to a field, which is a form, by the way. The login screen or box is a form. It's a static form. What a lot of people don't realize is that web pages are static pages, meaning that they are dead pages upon display. It is only when the field or the button has an event code associated to it that a response to the server happens. So if hypothetically you go to a field and you type in your phone number, for example, okay, the moment that you hit tab or move to the next tab order, it launches a lot of times a JavaScript piece of code that communicates with the server to verify the data that was keyed in. Okay. But web pages, by their very nature, are static pages, dead pages. It's the events associated to a form or a button, typically a submit button, that launches what we call submission requests to the server in the form of what we call post commands or get commands. Get commands means that a request is made to the server to grab information and bring it back through cookies or through the address bar. And the same thing is the post command. The post command says, I've collected this crap load of information. I have to send it to you, and I'm about to initiate a post command. And all that information gets transmitted via the address bar. Passwords, usernames, all that information gets transmitted over the address bar. If the website is not properly built and they don't put hidden controls on the address bar, you'll see that information. If there are controls on the address bar, you won't typically see that information. So think about it. When they're talking about keystroke encryption software, what they're saying is that before that data ends up flying through the internet through that post command script, it is going to be encrypted.
Right.
And that's what they're talking about. It's the same thing if there's malware in your computer, keystroke loggers. That is what that software is supposed to prevent. Okay? Lost wallet services. If you lose your wallet, they'll help you. And of course, they claim to have 24/7 unlimited resolution and prevention assistance. The same thing with regards to keystroke. The second plan has almost the same thing. The only difference there is triple bureau credit report monitoring and credit report and collection score for about $6 more a month. And the last one is Privacy Guard. I haven't heard too much about this company. Honestly, I don't know much about them. But they have two plans. One is a month. The first plan is monthly 3 bureau credit score tracking, 24/7 3 bureau daily credit monitoring. Privacy Guard app. I'm not sure really what that means. Email and text alerts. Monthly status by email. There's a question: is consolidating credit good? Well, it depends. Yeah, I would think so, because what you're doing is, let's say you owe 3 or 4 credit cards. You go get a consolidated loan, and you pay those off. Well, when you pay them off, that's going to be good because they're going to show as paid off. And chances are you're going to lower your payment so that the total amount of payments that you're making on each individual one, if you total them up, will probably be far greater than the consolidated loan. So yes, consolidating credit is a good thing, can be a good thing. But what I don't recommend is, let's say you do go get out a loan to consolidate your credit. Don't go out and cancel those credit cards, even though I know that it's something tempting to do because you got to pay them off. You don't ever want to use them again. Emergencies are going to happen. I mean, they always do. Something breaks. And most of us don't have thousands of dollars just laying around. So it's very easy to go take out the card and take care of it. And a lot of times, people who pay off their cards end up back in a year or two back where they were before. It happens. So as long as you're alive, it's going to happen. So, yeah, it can be a good thing, but it depends on the discipline that you have with regards. What I've done in the past is, if there's a card that I no longer use or owe, I stuff it somewhere in a little box, and I don't open that box, and I don't keep it in my wallet because it's easy. I can't afford to pay my credit card or cards in full every month. I know my cousin Frankie can. Now I know who's going to buy me lunch now. I didn't realize he used his credit card. Heck, we're going to go to La Pampa. So I won't ask my cousin at Osmo because he won't buy me anything. He wants me to buy lunch for him. So
I have a friend that pays off his credit card every month, and he started his son on that ritual, and his son, I believe, has an 820 credit score. Every month they pay it off, just like Frank was saying.
yeah, I mean, if you can do it, yeah, that's a way to do it. I mean, I've thought about it, really. I thought about, for example, with the money that I have left, sweating it for a week, taking the money that I have left and dumping it to one credit card and see what happens. I've thought about it, but having kids and pets, things happen.
Yes.
And it's not very easy. It's not very easy. So, unless you have a slush fund somewhere that you can tap when an emergency happens, it's difficult. I've been through one end of the spectrum to the other ever since I was 18. There's one side of me that says I wish I would have never gotten a credit card in my life, but the reality of it is that you need credit to get credit. They will not give you a home loan without a credit history. They won't lend you they won't lend you money for a car without credit history. It's a sad situation, that you need to be in debt to obtain debt. And what better example than our 45th president? I mean, come on, let's look at what he did and does. There's still questions whether he's really rich or not, whether he's just rich on paper. But he uses those mechanisms. And legally speaking, this is not something new. They've done it for years. He just, being rich and being the president of the United States, just brought this all into the limelight. I mean, there's a lot of controversy here locally, in Brownsville especially, with regards to limited liability corporations and how they're used as mechanisms to purchase property. Whether those individuals are public officials or private officials or whatever officials, the limited liability corporation is used specifically as a tool to purchase property under an assumed name for two reasons. One is to limit your tax liability, and two, to limit your overall liability in the property that you're buying, and three, to hide the fact that you're buying the property so that you don't have radicals like the Sierra Club and a few others go out and protest for an alligator or some flea-bitten cat that's been extinct for years. Sorry. I wasn't going to jump
So
into
we're talking about identity stuff, right?
I'm just saying. So, and I don't know why I brought up the limited liability corp. Why did I bring that up?
It's all right. Hey, the question: what is the dark web, and how do you delete personal information from it? I guess.
Well, like I said, I've never been in the dark web. I have no idea how to get to the dark web. I have no reason to be in the dark web. I know there's a lot of pornography on the dark web. I know there's a lot of illicit activity with regards to financial transactions between individuals in the dark web. But it is not an area that I know anything about. Those people who fear their information in the dark web is probably because they fear that their information has been stolen by, pretty bad cast of characters, hackers. But honestly, that's going to take some research with regards to the dark web. We probably will have a whole episode on the dark web.
Right. But
I honestly don't have enough information with regards to the dark web because I've never been on the dark web. So I really couldn't tell you what's on the dark web, but I've heard enough about the dark web to want to stay away from the dark web. So I that's probably a whole episode to itself. I'm not too concerned about the dark web right now, to be honest with you. But who knows, But Privacy Guard is a company that I've never heard about, honestly. But they have two plans. One's 19, one's 24. They do, monthly credit bureau credit score reports. They do the daily monitoring. They have Privacy Guard email, monthly status by email and text. Supposedly they assign to you some agent to help you with ID fraud. They provide secure browser tools, whatever that means. And by the way, that's a typo too. Both of them are typos. It was late at night. It was 12 midnight when I was putting this thing together. Remember, I sent you this thing like at 11. Well, actually, it was like 10 o'clock when I was doing it. I was already tired.
Yes, it was.
And I handed you the homework last night.
Yes.
I'm a
Yes.
bad teacher. Very bad teacher. Monthly credit bureau monitoring for all three credit bureaus. They have some credit score simulator, credit information hotline, and financial calculator suite, whatever that means. The more expensive plan has debit and credit card monitoring, UPS address change if somebody goes and tries to change your address or forward your mail somewhere else. They do date of birth monitoring in addition to email, phone, and name monitoring. ID application, public records monitoring. And by the way, you can go and pull the public records yourself too. This is not something new. Your children's social security number monitoring, privacy guard, email, monthly status, secure browser, secure. All of those things. The more expensive plan provides 1 million ID theft. I don't think the first one does. Lost and stolen wallet protection. And they give you annual public records review. So if somebody puts a judgment or a lien against you without knowing, they'll let you know at least annually. And reduced pre-approved credit card offers. So if you get a crap load of pre-approved credit card offers, they'll let you know. And if you've got any registered sex offenders lurking around your neighborhood or live around your neighborhood, supposedly they'll let you know about that too. So, to kind of cap all these, I will say that the articles that I have read claim that none of these do bank monitoring, even if they claim they do. So anything you get, you're probably not going to get bank monitoring. The only people that can monitor your bank is your bank.
It's a bank.
Period. But beyond that, some of these other things like the dark web, I mean, as Mr. Villarreal pointed out, he's got questions with regards to the dark web and what it is and what's on there, and I don't have enough information. I think that's a total separate episode onto itself, and as somebody that has not been on there, I personally could not answer some of those questions yet.
I mean, two of us. I've heard of it, but never been on it.
Yeah. So, I'm not so sure that's the most important worry to have. But definitely, people go after your social security numbers. And your date of birth is pretty important. And your address is pretty important. And your driver's license is pretty important. And just with those 3 or 4 pieces of information, they can open up tons of accounts, tons of accounts. So, yeah. So, do I recommend one of these? Yeah, you could probably. It wouldn't be a bad idea. I would just start off with a cheaper plan and see what they really do. And if they really do A, B, and C. But if you see that some of those monitoring methods or mechanisms are not any better than something that you could do, then you're probably throwing away your money. And I know we talked a lot about credit and bad debt and whether it makes sense to go pay somebody who claims to clean up your credit. I mean, I'll tell you firsthand that it's not. That there is no magic. There is no, fairy dust that these people have. There is no amount of educational training that these people get to clean up your credit. It doesn't work that way. They're just taking advantage of what the law says must happen within a 30-day period. Now, I get it that some people don't have time to do something like that. They might not want to spend the time doing that. They may not be good writers, but it doesn't take a whole lot to write one or two sentences that says, "This is on my credit report. It's not mine, and I want it removed." You know. But to me, when a person gets to that point, it's because they're trying to obtain something. They're trying to obtain a house. They're trying to obtain a car. They're trying to get a loan. They're trying to get a credit card. And if that's important to them, then I think it's in their best interest to move forward to reach out to those credit bureaus and launch the inquiry. Because chances are they'll be able to get rid of the blemish themselves. And they can use those extra $400, $500, $600, $700 for something else. Maybe pay off something. But there is no fairy dust. They have no magical potion. It's just taking advantage of the law and what the law says must happen within 30 days. And I'll be honest with you, I thought one day about starting a credit repair agency, knowing that there's a flaw. And there's a company or two out there that actually sells software that actually formulates the letters and does the electronic transmission. And that software is used by these credit repair operations. But there's nothing special about it, really. You know, it is a little shocking for me to give the advice about when to pay something and when not to pay something. But that's not advocating something that's right or wrong. You know, there's a difference between the moral thing to do and the right thing to do. The moral thing to do is to always pay your bills.
There we go.
The right thing to do is that sometimes it may not be the best thing to do, because you will suffer the consequences more due to the 7-year period.
Mm-hmm.
There's a question on the screen. Why do some employers look at credit report during pre-employment? I don't know. I mean, I know that we've all been in situations where we could have been denied employment because of credit history. I do not believe that an employee will be a good employee because they forgot to pay a bill or two. I don't think that equals whether an employee is a good employee. Now, there are situations and there are institutions where that may be a pretty reasonable factor to consider. Law enforcement would be the first one, obviously, right? Second of all would be if you work for a banking institution. Obviously, you don't want to hire somebody that is on the verge of being a modern day Jesse James, right? Or Bonnie and Clyde. Anything dealing with national security.
What I've been told, Dan, is they look at the credit report because that could put you potentially at risk,
right,
of doing something you're not supposed to do.
But
all right, say you owe $1 million.
Yeah.
Security, a drug dealer comes up to you and says, "Hey, I'll give you $1 million if you look the other way." They say that person is 9 to 10 times more risky than a person that has better credit.
Well, yeah. You could also run for president of the United States. Never pay your bill or pay a few porn girls off, and
but
still
those
get elected.
are categories. Remember, all right. the everyday grunt compared to the um, president of the United States.
the orange gorilla in the room.
Hey. The everyday person compared to somebody else that is higher than the GS 15, right, SCS level, they play by different rules,
Well, I
right?
know that, but
So,
it's no different. Look, you remember those propeller heads in high school, okay? The ones that studied for their SAT for an entire year. They got a perfect score. They went off to college to the Ivy League school, and they came back after a semester because they couldn't hack it. But why did they get into that Ivy League school? Because they studied their ass off for a year, got a perfect score, and when it came time to apply for a college, the college didn't look at anything other than their SAT score, and they said, this is a good student. He's in. And then the student comes in, first time in college by himself, away from parents, parties his ass off, flunks out the first semester, and comes back home. So what good did it do to have that perfect SAT score? Not a hell of a lot. Meantime, you get the guy that didn't get a good score, decided to go to the local community college, and he's doing great. In fact, he graduates. But they were profiled from the get-go. That one was bad, one was good.
right.
So I have that problem. Believe me, I've hired people that when I first hired them, looking at their resume, it seems like they dropped out of heaven. It was like God knew I needed that person, and they came down, and it was like a godsend. And the next thing I know, after they're already in, it was nothing to what was on paper. So I have a problem with the credit report being used as a pre-employment tool.
Right.
I really do.
Right.
Because I think that it is not an indication of whether that employee or prospective employee is going to be a good employee or not. But beyond that, beyond mind reading and mind control and whatever, there's not a whole lot of other mechanisms that can be used to determine whether a person will be a good employee or a bad employee. Can a creditor pardon debt, and how? Yes, they can. But there's a caveat. Okay? When a creditor, and it's happened to be once, by the way, a very famous electronics store here in Brownsville. Probably the only one. I had a credit card. I owed a $400 balance. From 1 minute to the next, that balance went from 400 to zero. I never knew why. I dare not question it, but I never knew why. Okay. A creditor can also pardon a bad debt. But there's a caveat to that pardon. When that pardon occurs, the creditor alerts the IRS that they have proceeded to pardon your debt. So if, let's say, your debt is $3,000.
So that becomes earned income.
Exactly. It becomes earned income. And you're supposed to get, at the end of the year when you file your taxes, a form from the creditor that says, I have pardoned your debt, and please make sure to include that in your income tax filing so that, it is considered income. What will happen if you do not report that debt? I will tell you that the IRS will find out, and they will make you pay that income. And I will tell you this because it happened to me. As you know, I had my vehicle stolen from my driveway. And if you have ever been through something like that, if you don't have gap insurance bought and they steal that vehicle, you will owe the difference between the value and the loan amount. And even when you have gap insurance, if you don't make a payment, or let's say you do make the payment but there's interest accumulated while your loan gets taken care of and you don't pay it, eventually that gets reported as bad debt, and the creditor can at some point pardon that debt. And they did. Chrysler pardoned that difference in the amount that accumulated between the insurance settlement and the gap insurance settlement. But they never sent a form. So I never knew they pardoned the debt. And as a result of that, one year when taxes were filed, the IRS came back and said, "Oh, by the way, you forgot to report this." So yes, a creditor can pardon a debt. The problem is that you need to report that pardon in the next filing season, or that current filing season, so that they don't come back and get you for non-reporting.
Right.
So, yep. Now, with regards to that, and I know a lot of people have been waiting for Mr. Biden to move forward on his promise to forgive student loan debt of, well, originally he promised $50,000, and now it was hovering down at $10,000. And chances are there will be no student debt relief. You know, Republicans aren't going to go for it. You know, for obvious reasons. They're looking out for the loan servicers. And of course, left-wing liberal Democrats, Bernie Sanders, Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez, they're not happy because, you know, they don't want $10,000. They want $50,000 forgiveness. You know, a lot of millennials out there owe $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 in student loan debt. And obviously $50,000 would be a little bit of a, well, not a little bit, but quite a bit of a debt. It doesn't mean they're going to pay their entire student loan debt off. It just means that it's going to help, right? But obviously that's not going to happen. $50,000 will never happen. $10,000 I can see happening, but it's going to take a lot of wheeling and dealing to get that to happen. And eventually, you know, that may be the case, you know, where student loans will be forgiven. But I guarantee you that the moment that that happens, the forgiveness will turn into earned income that tax season. And by the way,
so that's where they'll get.
By the way, you know that I also was a tax preparer. So, at one time. So, yep. That's the deal. I'm telling you, I'm going to write a book on these topics.
You should write a book. You know, it's been an interesting subject.
Yeah.
On the credit, the FICO scores, the three major credit reporting bureaus, and these what do you call them, subscriptions that you can get if you want to quote unquote protect the credit.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, the reality
of course,
is,
because of the cost.
Yeah, it comes with a cost. You know, the reality of it is that we all have to realize that our credit history is going to fluctuate as we get older. You know, there are unexpected things that happen in life. You could lose your job. You could spend more than you bring in. It happens. Anybody who's alive and breathing today is going to go through some event. You could get sick. If you don't have health insurance, or even if you had health insurance, you're going to have a crap load of bills that are not going to be covered. Copays and deductibles. And it happens. And most people don't have thousands of dollars under the mattress that they can just take out. That's just reality. Anybody that sits here and tries to criticize me that how could I say such a thing? They must be living on some other planet or living in a bubble. Because the reality of it is that, first of all, we are all young and stupid at one time. That's reality. We all have bought things that we didn't need, and we all have run up debt that we probably shouldn't have.
Why are
But
you talking about me again, man?
no.
Jeez.
But that's
I feel
that's
like this
what.
whole show you've been talking about me.
But that's why things are things happen. You know, you can't you can't sit here and judge a person because they've had some event in their life that caused them to have a debt. You cannot sit there and judge somebody unless you're in that person's shoes at that moment in time. And that person tried to make the decisions that they made to the best that they could to try to at least come out somewhere on top or better. So I think that for those people that sit on a pedestal and judge people, saying, oh, well, he didn't save enough money or he didn't manage his money correctly. I mean, it's crazy for somebody to say that because shit happens.
I've had those words told to me. Well, you should have managed your money better, or you should have done this. Or really? Are you in my shoes? No.
No.
All right. I made the mistake. Now I'm faced up to it. So
Yeah. Hey, let me put it to you this way. There are mechanisms in the legal system in place when we, as consumers, get in trouble. And they're
yes,
there for a reason.
yes,
And if those mechanisms are good enough for corporate America,
and they're good enough for the
they're
average
good
day
enough for
citizen.
the individual person. And there is no shame whatsoever by having to use those mechanisms in place. And there's a lot of
Right.
people that shy about lawsuits and lawyers. But the reality of it is today that sometimes you need to apply justice when there's injustice. And the only way that you can get justice is to use the legal mechanisms that we are guaranteed as rights in this country. And whether people like it or not, sometimes that's just the way it has to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's
There's a
good?
question down there.
Yeah, are security deposit credit cards good to start building credit? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. In fact, for people that don't have credit and for people that have less than perfect credit, a security deposit credit card is a good way to do it. I did it one time. Yeah. In essence,
I've never done it.
yeah. I did it one time, and it's your money. If you close that account down the road, they have to return that security deposit. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's a good way to build credit again. It is a good way. It sucks because you have to put money down, but it's your money. Chances are you probably blow those $500. Because typically that's what they start off at, $500. You'd blow it somewhere else. You'd blow it at the taqueria. at the Papas a la carte.
Haven't been there, have you?
Yeah, it sucks.
Really?
Yeah.
I passed by it the other day. I wanted to stop.
No,
I'm like,
don't waste your time. It's not worth it. I'm sounding like my cousin, aren't I now?
Yes, you are. Hey, you're Salinas or you're Astro? What are you?
Oh, it depends what day I wake up.
All
Depends how much damage I want to cause in one day.
right.
So.
Awesome.
But yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yep, believe it or not, we went for 2 hours, or almost 2 hours.
Wow.
It's the
Hey.
longest show I've ever done.
Right. Hopefully, people got some good information out of it.
At Veda's Barbecue? What? What is he smoking?
Hey. What's that Veda's barbecue?
Oh, he's saying that we'd spend the money at Veda's Barbecue. Well, yeah, with the cost of barbacoa and brisket these days, yeah, you could spend $500 easily. At least I think that's what he meant,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But that is a good mechanism. It is a good mechanism to build upon that, and it actually provides a history to potential creditors, future creditors, that you know what, you can handle the credit card. You know.
Well, Hashman says, hey, he's all for it.
I know he needs his pet care card, so you can get all his necessities on the pet care card. Right,
Yeah,
Hash Brown?
Yep.
I don't know where my
Yep,
Oreo's
he
at.
does.
He's somewhere around.
Where's your
here.
Oreo? Hey, I heard a barking earlier.
No, that was Lucky and Ty. I don't know where they're at. Oh, Lucky's right here. Hey, boy. Come here. Come here. There you go. First time on the show, Lucky.
You're lucky.
There you go.
He's
Yeah.
probably like, what are you doing?
Maybe
Hey,
pets will have. Well, actually, I wish they had insurance. I wish we could cover them in insurance and medical insurance, especially with the.
there's pet insurance.
I know, but you know what they don't cover? They don't cover the daily maintenance pills like the flea and tick, the heartworm.
Oh,
They cover in case your best friend steps over your dog and breaks his leg. Remember?
no, I don't remember any of that.
You did.
I don't remember any of that. If it didn't happen within the past year, I don't remember anything. Huh? Dementia, Alzheimer's, old age.
That's all right. Thunder forgave you a long time ago.
But apparently you didn't.
No. It only cost me $500.
No más. Wow. Mm.
Well, it was my fault
Yep.
too. You know,
Tell you, man. Tell you, hey. So,
that's all right. It's no big deal. No, no hard feelings. He really didn't
Hey,
belong in the
two-
apartment anyway.
2 hours, huh?
Yeah, 2 hours. So, man, oh man. Oh yeah. But yeah, so this was today's episode. 2 hours. Lots of information. I think lots of good information. You know, I
Yes.
think it helps a lot of people that have unknowns about credit in general, how it works, how the FICO gets calculated, what can you do if you have a bad debt, what you should do, what you should not do, and then of course how to protect yourself from your identity getting stolen, whether
Mhm.
it's your identity or your family's identity. You know. So I think it was pretty informative information, and we had a couple of people with a couple of questions, which was good. Facebook
sir.
is working. Facebook comments is working, and YouTube comments is
Yep.
working. So that's a plus. So I'm not sure what next week's episode's going to be yet, but I'm working on it. I don't think we'll have an episode on the dark web for at least a couple of
Anytime
weeks.
soon?
No, I think that's a whole topic to itself that really requires some digging. And honestly, if I'm going to do the research, I got to find a laptop that I can expend
Right.
because I don't want anything lurking on my machines here that gets caught from the dark web. I'd rather have a machine that I know I'm never going to need and use, and I can get rid of it afterwards. Because
Mm-hmm.
the last thing I want is a virus or
Right.
malware, to pop in to the network. So I don't think that's a topic that I'm gonna at least be exploring actively for a while. You know, so. But anyway, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you're back. You
Well,
know,
thank you for
I
the invite. Hey,
I like
anytime I'm
to
able
I
to
like to
assist,
have
I'll
my
assist.
primary sidekick here with me all the time. You
Anytime
know,
I'm able to assist, I'll assist. Hey, when I'm working well, I'm working. You know how that is.
well,
Yeah. So,
you're just working for fun.
hey, but you know what? Somebody has to do it.
I know. The rest
So
of us,
better
like you
me.
said, the rest of us, like you say, play on the internet all day.
Hey, see? Hey. Hey.
Alrighty, everybody. Well,
All right.
this was today's show. I hope it was informative for everybody. I hope it brought some insight into the world of credit, delinquency, the FICO score, and the mechanisms to protect yourself. And hopefully, you'll take that with you and try to apply it to your everyday life. So, we'll see you all on the next show. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. You guys have a good night.